What is up, everybody? My name is Kyle Lucy, your resident fantasy basketball analyst here. And in this video today, I'm bringing you 3 keys to success to win your fantasy basketball league. I've been doing this for 20 years. It's one of the biggest passions in my life, so I want to bring that passion to this video for you guys to help you win your league. Let's dive right in.
Giddy up!
Gotta love Kramer. Now, the thing I love most about fantasy basketball, and is our #1 key to success that we're gonna discuss right now, is streaming.
Like this tweet if you want to become a big streamer. And I tweeted this for 2 reasons.
No, not that streaming, right? We're talking about streaming in fantasy basketball, which means when you drop or add players on a regular basis to fill a lineup spot based on short-term potential. Usually players who are streamed are not consistently good enough to warrant a full-time roster spot. Just a beautiful definition right there that sums it up perfectly, right? Now, why do we stream? That's a good question, right? The 2 biggest reasons that I do it are to pick up hot players and to get more games played that week. If you see one of the worst guys on your team and he's got 1 game over the next 4 days, it's probably smart to drop him for a similar or hotter name that has maybe 2 or 3 games over the next 4 days, right? And to really maximize streaming, you really want to use all of the moves you have available. Most leagues I play in, they give you 4 or 5 ads per week. And almost every week, I'm using all those moves.
That if you don't use it, you lose it?
Is that a serious question?
No, it wasn't.
Now, I wanted to dig deeper and look at the best teams across my leagues that I'm in right now to see how many ads they have compared to the rest of the league. And what I consistently found throughout all the leagues I'm in was that the top guy in the first place, me in some of these leagues, we all had the more ads than most of the league, right? It's going to be very, very rare that everyone you draft knocks it out of the park, right? So you're going to have to make some tough decisions when it comes to streaming, but to make things easier, you really want to use the season rankings, the last 14 days rankings, and the last 7 days rankings. Don't focus on the name, focus on the stats and what your team needs to win that week. Take Russell Westbrook, for example.
He is owned in 75% of my leagues, right? Or leagues across Yahoo. This is a rare league that he's available in, right? But we can see his current ranking on the season, his average stats, right? 188. That's terrible, especially when you consider most leagues we play in are 12 teams to a league. A lot of teams have 13 bench spots, 13 active spots. 12 times 13 is 156, right? So if your guy is near that 156 mark, he does not need to be owned. And if we look here, season total, it's a little better, 146, right? Either way, do I want to add Russell Westbrook? Well, if I'm looking for certain things that he does really well, maybe like points, rebounds, and assists, maybe I'll go for him. It really is dependent on what you need in that matchup right now, right? The rest of that week. But he's a guy that you do not want to get deceived by his name because most people just do not know that his numbers are that terrible. Even when we look at the last 30 days, I'm looking here, he's 151st, right? So this is not a guy that's going to be much better than anybody else, but maybe I could drop Keontae George for him or Nembhard if that's what I need, right? So I've still got guys that are maybe ranked a little worse, so maybe he's better in that sense, but still do not get sucked in by the name of Russell Westbrook. And there's plenty of other guys like that. Jalen Green is another one of those guys, right? If we pull him up, again, 220th. Season average, go to season total, 171. That is terrible. But guess what? He is 87% rostered. So these are 2 names that you might not need to have on your team. They can get you a couple categories, but they are lacking across the board everywhere else.
So I touched on the rankings a little bit there, but I can't stress enough how important using the last 14 days by totals and the last 7 days rankings by totals are when streaming a guy. right? And I say by totals because Yahoo, as you saw, allows you to do it by averages. But if a guy only plays 1 or 2 games over that 7 or 14-day period, then he's going to be ranked a lot higher. And if he's missed games, he's maybe not so reliable. So I always like sorting by totals because games played is a skill. Now, I want to give us a real-life look in on a league that I'm in.
Is this real life?
Yeah, this is real life.
And what I look for when I'm streaming a guy to kick off the week.
So we're going to start by looking at the team, my team, and who I've got in for Monday, so I can figure out how to get the best start to the week and if we have any guys that are expendable. I immediately see Torian Prince was injured today, and he's just not a great player in general, ranked 126th on the season, 8% owned, so that's a guy who I feel is expendable that I can stream a guy for. So what's the first thing I do? I go to players, right? I look for guys on their games tomorrow. And then I'm also going to start with one of my favorite filters, the last 14 days. Remember, I like to look at last 14 days and last 7 days of games. Now, scrolling down here, I already have Gary Trent on a few teams, and he's the top player. So I definitely always want to utilize these buttons, right? Blue means a new update, white means not a new update. But more than anything, we want to look at the news of what's happening here. And mainly, I'm always looking at this area here. What are his last stats? Now, like I said, I've already got Gary Trent on a couple teams. One reason I don't want to stream him in this scenario, he's got a game tomorrow, but then he has a 4-day break before his next game. Not ideal, not somebody I want to stream because I want multiple games, right? Scrolling down here, we see Porter, nope. And we also can't get this guy because it's January 24th, so he's on waivers until then. Batum, we already know kind of about Batum, nothing special there. Scrolling down, none of these guys are really standing out to me, so I'm going to go to last 7 days and see if there's anybody I like more. Batum pops to the top of the list. Niang actually broke out for a massive game, and he looks like he's pretty hot over here. So he's had some really great games recently, but let's look at their opponent too, because remember, we also want to factor in who they're playing against, and they're playing against the Magic. And if we go take a look at the Magic and where they're at, remember on that defensive tracker that I always like to use, the Magic are a top 8 defense. But one thing that's good to know, and this is why following games is so important, the Magic played today fully healthy roster back, and they held the Heat, who are also fully healthy, to 87 points. 87 points. So when healthy, the Magic defense is exceptional, and they are healthy now. So I don't know if I want to target Niang because they're also playing on the road. So the Magic are even better at home. Like I said, they just held the Heat to 87 points. Now I scroll down and it's between these two guys who I've identified as guys I really like. And let's look at Asar Thompson.
Fade ahead to Asar Thompson down the lane, throws it down.
Because I really like him because not only is he kind of heating up lately, but this guy was ranked 30th in top 30 earlier in the year when he was getting a lot of minutes. Another thing I like, his matchups, Milwaukee and Charlotte. Let's go to our defensive ranks and see where we find Milwaukee and Charlotte on the season. Well, if you know we've been following this, Milwaukee is 25th out of 30th, giving up 120 points a game. Charlotte is 24th out of 30, giving 119 again. Those are juicy matchups. And we look, Asar Thompson in his last game went for 22 and 9. His last rebound efforts in his last 4, 8, 8, 9, 9. So his rebounds are picking up, but more importantly, his minutes are picking up. He played the most minutes he's played in the last 10 games in his last game when he played 32 minutes. He also got up his most shots he's got up in a while. And that game wasn't a blowout. That was a very close game with the Bucks. They were going wire to wire the whole time. So he was getting minutes because he was performing. He contributes everywhere. So this is a guy that I want to target. The only other option I looked at would have been Cody Martin because he's great with steals and blocks. But look at Cody Martin. Who's he facing? Who am I going to stream him against? That's the Timberwolves. Remember where the Timberwolves are for defense? Yep, they're top defense in the league by far. Number 1 defense, only giving up 107. Oh, guess what? That's also on the road. So many factors going against it. This just makes sense. Asar Thompson has 2 home games, actually 3 home games because he's going to face the Wizards, who are last in defense. So Asar looks like an amazing pickup. So I'm gonna target him for tomorrow, hit the plus sign, and 34, I think I'm gonna go with the $2 bid because maybe other people are seeing that 22-point breakout and they want him as well. And that's it. Going for Asar Thompson, dropping Prince. We're good to go. Awesome.
It's that time, guys. If you could hit like or subscribe right now for me, that would mean so much. It takes 2 seconds and would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, guys. Looking to get as many likes and subscribers as I possibly can for this channel. Another tip that can really help you when streaming guys and figuring out who to pick between, if there's a couple guys you like, is using the opponent's defense, right? I mention this on my waiver wire ads videos all the time, but it's so important here, right? Here's the site I use that breaks down nicely with extra features as well. I'm gonna put the link in the description so you can use it too.
So you see, Minnesota has the best defense this season, allowing 107.4 points per game. What I also like is that you can see the last three, the last one, home and away. Don't really need this 2022 stats, that's gonna be irrelevant. But I'll scroll, and if there's a guy I have facing Miami, or the other guy I have is facing Indiana, that is a massive difference. You're looking at 13 points per game difference. So we always want to focus on the bottom half, right? Use these bottom half teams and stream against them. And we can also sort by this last three here, which will be pretty cool too. So we can actually see who the best defenses are in the last three, which can get you a surprise one and say, wow, Atlanta is actually playing a lot better recently. Maybe don't stream against them because now they're actually fourth in the last three. Right? So just a really cool site I use that can really help us determine who to stream against and who to not stream against.
Another part to streaming is being active and setting daily alarms if you need to. Now, half the leagues I'm in are fab leagues where you bid on players daily. So with those, I'm checking all my teams towards the end of the night when most of the games are over so I can make like the best decision who to bid on. In the other half of my leagues, they're like anytime pickup leagues. So you can add guys right before the game, or you can add them at midnight when it rolls over to the next day. Now, I like to get a decent amount of sleep, 7 to 8 hours, so I'm usually in bed by 11, right? So I'm not staying up till midnight just to make some adds or drops. But in the case on a weekend or a random weeknight when I am up and I realize it is past midnight, I'll go to those leagues and I'll add that guy before anyone else can, right? I find it also helpful to set alarms in situations where you have a guy and he's like a game time decision and he might be in your injured slot, right? You don't want to forget about him because you're busy with life. So set an alarm on your phone so you won't forget. I find it's important to give a quick check too to my teams before most of the games start at 4 o'clock Pacific time where I'm at. And another really important alarm I set every Sunday is an alarm before the second to last game and the last game. The reason I do this is if your matchup is really close in field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers, you want to give yourself the chance to possibly bench any of those players if it's going to jeopardize that category.
Now here's a situation where I'm dealing with exactly that. This is my team over here, and we look at Sunday. I'm barely ahead in field goal percentage, right? 1 down in steals and a couple down in blocks. We're seeing who I have coming up next. I've got Sengun still to play the rest of the day, and then I've got Nesmith. So I'm going to see field goal percentage is the thing we're going to look at the most because he's also got Tatum playing right now. He's got Simons up, and he's got Jalen Smith up as well, right? So Tatum shoots a decent percentage. Let's see if Nesmith is worth keeping in. I've got 4 minutes to make this decision or not. Is he going to shoot above 47%? Let's dig in. And I want to go to my season stats over here, and I'll scroll through. Last week, he's shooting 44%, but that's a very small sample size. Over the last 2 weeks, he's shooting 52%. Over the past month, 46%. So that's right under that 47. But for the season, he's shooting 51%. So I like the last 2 weeks. I like the last the season number being 515 as well. I also like the fact that I need him and Sengun both to get me some steals to catch up in that category. So in a situation like this, it's on the line. I'm going to keep him in. But if he was, say, like Jordan Poole, or somebody, or like Jordan Clarkson, who we know, can routinely go 38%, 33, 46, that would be a situation where I might want to bench him because I do not want to lose field goals. But this is a toss-up, so I'm going to keep going with my guy, Aaron Nesmith. Please root for him to shoot above 47% so I can win that category, as it's so close.
Another big tip when it comes to streaming and picking up guys is making sure you have your notifications turned on your phone for your fantasy provider. I can't tell you how important getting those injury updates so you can move guys into an injured slot and then immediately pick someone else or move a guy out of an injured slot and into your starting lineup. Another thing that's great about getting these notifications is the like or ads that you see from your fellow league mates. Let's say you're in 3 leagues, right? And you get a notification that Mason Plumlee was just added in 1 league. Then an hour later, you get another notification that Mason Plumlee was just added in another league, right? So that means maybe you want to do some research, see what's going on with Mason Plumlee, why people are adding him, and maybe you go snag him in your 3rd league before he goes and gets picked up. The number 2 key to winning your league is knowing your fantasy playoff schedule. This is huge going into the draft, so you know what players have the most games played during your 3 fantasy playoff weeks.
Now, I found this amazing site that gives you scenarios for every 3-week stretch to end the season, so you can toggle and find the stretch, the week, and identify who you want to draft and to avoid. Link is in description for this as well. For instance, this year, most of my leagues started on week 21. So I'm going to select this one, the one that says week 21, 22, and 23. Those are my 3 playoff weeks, right? And how we utilize this the best, first we look for red areas, danger zones, right? Showing that the Hornets, and here's the total, right? So 4 games each week, 4 games this, 4 games, 4 games, for a total of 12 games over that 3-week stretch. These danger zones here make me want to avoid players on those teams. For instance, the Hornets, I didn't draft any LaMelo Ball, right? Or Terry Rozier or Miles Bridges, right? And then for the Mavericks, this was really concerning because you can see most teams have either 10 or 11 games played, right? So they're all in kind of that bunch. But there's 3 teams with 12. That's who we really want to target. And there's 1 team with 9. So that stands out big time. So they've got a 2-week and then they end with a 3. So this is terrible. So I avoided Luka and Kyrie on all of my drafts. Kyrie's just a guy I don't want to have in general, but it is so important to have games played and to have your star player get the most games played during the most important time. So I focused on trying to get guys from these 3 teams since they have 4 games every single week. Sacramento Kings, I targeted Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. On the Philadelphia 76ers, I couldn't get any Embiid. I would have loved to, but I got Maxey on 3 teams. I got Harris on 3 teams. I've got Oubre on a couple now. I add and drop him. And then on the Cavs, I got Mobley, who's now hurt. But if you could get Donovan Mitchell, Garland, I have Jarrett Allen on 1 team. So really important when the season starts to look at this and figure out when your playoffs are starting, because not all of mine start on week 21, some on 19, some on 20. So I went back and forth and looked at all these because you'll see they're pretty different as well. If we look at this one that starts on week 19, only the Blazers have 12, and then there's a lot of teams with 9. So you really want to this would be terrible. If you have a Lakers player and they get 2 games and 3 games to end the season, that is crippling. So and if you have LeBron or AD, that's going to make a huge difference. So you really want to look at this, and also take a look at this when you're making trades mid-season. Like right now, let's look at another one, week 20. If you're trading for a guy and he's on one of these teams that has 9 games, right? And puts you at a big disadvantage, maybe you don't want to make that trade, right? Because you want your star players to have the most games played during the playoffs. So link is in description for this. I can't say how much I use this pre-draft. And then if I'm ever about to make a trade, I will always consult this as well. It helps out big time.
And the final key to winning your league is one of the most obvious and important: consume content and do your research.
Do your own research. It's a phrase that can mean so much.
There's no way I could win titles without consuming content daily by watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, reading blurbs, and most of all, watching the actual games. I love watching hoops, and League Pass allows me to watch every game I want. It's especially important to consume as much information before the draft, as that'll really dictate how good your team is going to be. So before my drafts, I like creating notes on my phone, like a do or do not draft list. In the last couple of years, I actually started doing a note that looks like this. I'll have a note where I put players' names every time they're mentioned as someone to target. And if they're mentioned multiple times, I'll put ×3 or ×2. So I can really get a feel of who are the most recommended guys going into draft season. Now, boy, did that not work out great for me drafting Jordan Poole, who everyone loved. So did I, right? And I snagged him on 3 leagues, right? We all know how that's going.
Jordan Poole slips. The lead is 11.
Now, luckily, that strategy ended up with a lot more positives than negatives for me, as I focused on guys like SGA, Jaren Jackson Jr., Devin Vassell, Gobert, Simon. So a lot more positives than negatives with it, right? That's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. And to recap, here's the 3 keys to win your league. Number 1 is streaming and everything involved with that. Number 2 is knowing your fantasy playoff schedule. And number 3 is consuming content just like this. So keep watching, keep liking, keep subscribing, and leave some comments in there too. I love interacting with you guys in the comments. Love to get your takes on my takes, and go from there. Thanks so much for the time today, guys. Look forward to the next video. Peace out.